What to do when your child stops liking the food that they used to. One day they're eating avocado, lentils, salmon, and then the next, all they want is maybe some yogurt, pasta, and bananas. Is it picky eating? Is it something else? Well, today we're gonna break it all down, why kids stop eating and what you can do about it. Welcome to the Messy Mom Hotline. Real questions, real mess, and real answers. Hello, you've reached the Messy Mom Hotline, where no feeding emergency is too wild or question too messy. So tell me, what's your emergency? So today's question comes from a mom. Hi, Marina. My 2.5-year-old used to eat everything. I mean everything, like avocado, salmon, broccoli, even lentils. But all of a sudden, she just stopped. She's now only surviving out of yogurt, bananas, and noodles. At daycare, she eats very well. It's probably peer pressure, but at home, it's a struggle. So I'm really worried and I'm frustrated, especially because she used to eat a lot of foods. What do I do? Help. So welcome to the toddler years, 2.5. So let's break down why this is very, very common in toddlers. And later on, we're going to talk about some strategies that you can use to kind of ease off some of the pressure and strategies so your child can start accepting some of the foods that she or he used to eat. So let's start off with food regression. This is actually very common. It happens sometimes around 18 months of age, and it coincides where it's babies turning into toddlers. And so a couple of things that are happening. The first one is that they're craving independence. And so when your baby was little, as you mentioned, they would eat everything, right? Food was the only distraction, and that's all they wanted to do. But as they're growing and stepping into the toddler years, they're a lot more curious. They want to explore. So food is not the only thing that's happening. So they're probably going to walk around, and you're probably also having a hard time keeping them still. So it coincides with them wanting to be independent. That's one. Also, food neophobia is actually very real, and this just means fear of new food. And this is a phenomenon that usually also coincides in the toddler years, because toddlers start getting a little afraid of food, even though they used to like it. But even if it smells funny, if it looks funny, they might just say, no, and they'll start refusing and maybe going towards more comfort food or food that is very, very similar, like you mentioned. So yogurt is very bland. Pasta, the texture is very consistent, homogeneous. So it's the same texture, the same with yogurt. So these are very familiar foods with maybe not a lot of texture, because some toddlers are starting to have a harder time with textures. So food neophobia is real. And just realize that this is a common phase that usually heightens around 18 to 2 years of age, which is exactly where you are, Mom. And it will eventually go away as your child grows. But here is what really matters, because at this point, what you, mom or dad, are doing can help either heighten the picky eater or just make it more as a phase. Because in my practice, I start seeing that this is a time where parents, we start to worry, we start to get angsty, we start maybe to pressure, we start to talk more about food and saying, ándale, mijita, ándale, or we might even think that they're manipulating us. It's like, Marina me está manipulando. He's manipulating me, and that's why he's not eating the foods. It's not manipulation, Dad. It's actually part of their developmental phase that they're kind of scared of new food and they want more comfort and more familiar food all the time. And also, their growth is going to be slowing down. And so they're not going to be as hungry as they were when they were maybe 9 months. And so when they're younger in the baby phase, they have a lot more growth spurts, even the same as adolescents. So if there's a lot of more appetite, there's going to be a lot more growth. And during the toddler years, they kind of like lean out. So their growth is steadier and not as fast as when they were younger. And so this is when parents might feel like they're just not eating. Yes, they're eating, but maybe not as much as they were when they were babies. And this is actually quite normal because, again, their growth is not going to be as rapid as when they were in the infancy stage. Toddlerhood is like up and down, up and down. And what's interesting is that they've done studies on toddler appetite and toddler caloric intake. And so what they found is that toddlers are so erratic in what they're eating. And so one day they could be eating 500 calories, and then the next day they could be making up for those calories. But what's important is that at the end of each week, they're eating pretty much the same amount of calories. And so for us parents, we see one day that they're eating nothing, and we get so worked up, we're so worried. But again, nutrition, it's not just what they're eating one day, is maybe the next or maybe next week, they're going to be eating to compensate what they didn't eat that day. So yes, expect kids' eating patterns to be very erratic. One day they're going to eat a lot, and then the next day they're like, what's going on? Why aren't you eating? This is very normal. There's a lot of things that you can start doing, which we're going to talk about, to help your child ease and to help your child learn to re-accept these foods. So parent, mom, and dad, if you're going through this, I want you to really pay close attention and realize that what you do now, your parenting style, your approach in these couple of months and even years could really make a huge difference in the relationship that your child forms with new foods. So let's talk about some of the things that you, mom, the caller, can do. And I know this is going to sound really hard, but I want you to keep it cool. So I want you to think you're just like a cool mom. You're putting on your cool glasses and you're just like, I'm chill. This is good. Like, act as if it's not that important to you. Because oftentimes if we get really, really worried and we're showing worried because we're pressuring, we're like, ándale, mijita, why don't you, and we're working it up, our kids notice, and our kids start noticing, wow, I think this is really important. And then that's when problems come in. So really try to keep a more neutral approach and a non-pressured approach. And I'll explain to you a little bit more on this. We want to keep our cool, right? But we also want to keep meals consistent and predictable, right? So if you're a parent that was already struggling with maybe meal schedules and snacks, and maybe they're always snacking, well, this is going to be a time where schedules is really going to work in your favor. So think of predictable meals. Again, predictable. Toddlers like what's predictable. That's why they do so well in daycare, because daycare, they even have like a cleanup song. They probably have a similar song for eating. They know what's ahead. So try to mimic that. 3 meals, right? A breakfast, lunch, and a dinner, and then 2 to 3 snacks. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities for your child to get the nutrients that he or she may need. So consistent meals and snacks. We also got to know our role. And I think this is hard when we have toddlers because they're fighting with us all the time. Your role, mom or dad, is to decide what you're serving because you're going to the supermarket or you're preparing the meals, and the times, aka the schedules, right? This is what we call the division of responsibility. And this is really important because if we forget these roles and then we start allowing our kids to decide when they want to eat and what they want to eat, we're kind of creating little monsters because kids need routine. Kids need boundaries. That's how they thrive. So you're deciding the what and you're deciding the when. They decide how much and if they want to try it, right? How much and if. You decide the what and the when. And at the same time, we also want to give them some control, right? Because now we know they're craving control. So how can we as parents be successful in giving them a little control? Again, not everything. This is not a restaurant, Paquito. But what could you do? For snack. So sweetie, for snack, do you want the strawberries with cheese or do you want the yogurt with a granola bar? Right? You're allowing him to have two options. So some control. And if your child says, no, I want some cookies and milk. Well, that wasn't part of the option. And your child needs to understand that maybe later that could be part of the option, but right now it's not on the menu. We have this or we have that. And so if your child consistently is giving you another option, this has nothing to do about food. This has to do with control and who's deciding what. Maybe for the longest time, your child has been in the position to decide what he wants. So control within limits is really going to be something that they're going to feel independent, and they're going to like that independence because they can control, quote unquote, control by this option and this option. And lastly, we want to keep exposing your kids to that food that they no longer eat. And I think this is where sometimes we fall short. And I get it because I get frustrated if I give my kids, broccoli for that week and next week, and all they do is refuse it, and I don't want to waste the food. And so I 100% get it because it could be so frustrating. We're doing all this energy and preparation for then your kid not to eat it. But really the biggest win is not whether the food is eaten, but really we're focusing on what's offered. Okay? So I really want you to continue offering it. And the way we're going to do it, right? This is where the strategy comes into play. We're always going to introduce that. Maybe let's say we're going to do salmon again, right? Or we're going to do the lentils again or the avocado. We're always going to offer that food that they used to love, in that case, avocado, with something that they're already liking. So pasta. So always with a safe food or even an accepted food with something that they're learning to eat, which could be avocado. So if you get into the habit that there's always going to be something that they're learning to eat, then it becomes less scary. Then it becomes less pressure of, my mom's now offering me avocado. The expectation is I'm going to eat it. No, because I'm probably going to be serving avocado consistently with no pressure. I might not say anything, and it's just going to be there. So continue exposing it, always with a safe food or accepted food with a new food. So the main message that I want to give you is that sometimes we need to start training our kids that food will take time for them to learn, right? And I think often we, even as healthcare providers or as social media in the world, the expectation is that you're going to present it and they're just going to eat it. But I want you to start training your child that it might take time for them to learn, to relearn how to eat it. Because again, they already liked it in the past, but we're just relearning how to enjoy it again. So some of the things that you could start doing is don't say anything, right? And oftentimes we're constantly talking about food. And so we serve the avocado, we serve the salmon, and we're like, hi, but you used to like it. And sweetie, it's so good. I have another episode on the number one mistake that parents are doing, so check that out. But minimize the talk around the food, minimize that. And I just want you to have another conversation, nothing to do around food. So minimize the talk around food and retrain your child that, okay, you didn't like it now, maybe later, but thank you for touching it. Thank you for smelling it. Thank you for trying it. Okay, you don't like it now, maybe later. Using this simple phrase could even just teach your child and plant a seed on, okay, so it's fine that I didn't eat it. Like mom, get angry or I'm not going to be in trouble. No, it's going to be there. We're consistently going to have it in family meals, but you don't like it yet. Maybe later. So let's start teaching our kids that food may take time, just as we teach them how to ride a bike, right? We don't expect them to learn it tomorrow. We're like, okay, keep on trying. Or so we have a completely different approach when they're learning how to bike than when we teach them how to eat. And we should have the same approach. Patience, right? No pressure, neutral approach, and trying to keep it as positive. So now your Messy Bites real life challenge. And so this week, what I want you to do is I want you to go back to one of the foods that your child did like in the past, and I want you to serve it in the plate. I want you to serve a tiny portion on the plate. And I want you to observe what happens, right? If the reaction is like, get it out of the plate, right? I first need your child to get used to having that food in the vicinity, right? Okay, sweetie, it's okay. You don't have to eat it. We're just gonna put it to the side, right? And that might be the first exposure that they need. You don't have to eat it. Maybe we can touch it. Maybe we can smell it. So you can do that, or you can practice saying the words that, okay, you don't like it now, maybe later, sweetie. Thanks for trying. Practicing this phrase of reassurance is going to kind of let the pressure not only from you, but from your child. So I want you to practice bringing that one tiny food back and practicing these words and even observing what happens. Okay, and again, we're always going to serve it with a safe food or an accepted food, never all new foods at once. So I want you to tell me what happens when you try this exercise. I want you to share your wins or fails and let me know how I can help you. All right, messy moms, that is it for today's episode. Remember that food regression is a normal developmental phase. You're not failing. You're probably doing a lot better than you give credit. So if this episode made you feel seen, make sure to subscribe. And above all, I want to hear from you. I want to hear what is the messy mom question, doubt that you have, because that is what makes this so special. So you can always email me, find me at Nutrichicos, or just comment below, and your Messy Mom question could be featured in the next episode. So Messy Mom, real questions, real mess, real answers. So hasta la próxima. Thanks for watching or listening.